What in the uncharted void is that thing supposed to be? The words slipped out of Captain Zark's mandibles before he could catch them, a phrase uncharacteristic for the seasoned commander of the Callan fleet. The alien bridge crew, all composed of tall, dark, feathered Sains, stared wide-eyed at the object on the ship's viewing screen, floating in the depths of space and blocking their path like some monolithic predator. It was an unknown warship. The crew's confusion wasn't without merit. For centuries, the Sealand fleet had encountered countless species across the galaxy. They'd seen defense cruisers, massive planetary blockade vessels, even hyper-advanced stealth ships. But this was different. Massive and almost brutalist in design, the vessel was a blocky, intimidating silhouette with an armor hull that looked as if it had been hammered into place by sheer force rather than careful engineering. "Analysis reports are coming in now, sir," announced Torv, the first officer, in a voice that trembled just enough to betray his nerves. "Scans indicate heavily reinforced hull plating. Estimated weaponry output, sir, it's off the charts. The power readings alone are inconsistent with anything we've encountered." Zark clicked his claws together in an anxious rhythm. "Power readings, I need numbers." Torv hesitated, beat clicking, uncertain how to convey what he was reading. "Our scanners max out at a threshold, sir. The readings are beyond that. Whatever powers this thing, it could dwarf our main reactor." A deep, uncomfortable silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. The Sealans were a pragmatic species, trained to avoid direct conflict and rely on strategy, diplomacy, and advanced technology to overcome threats. Yet here, looming before them, was an unknown ship, and, by their readings, one that held more destructive potential than their entire fleet. Zarek squinted at the blocky warship. There was a rawness to it, a sense of brute force married to a utilitarian purpose. The design was unlike anything in the galaxy's standard aesthetics, lacking the elegance of Callan or even the cold efficiency of Kill's craft. "Zoom in on the hull," Zarek ordered, leaning forward. The viewing screen complied, focusing on the ship's exterior, revealing pockmarks, scars, and crude lines, as if its surface had seen countless battles and emerged through it all. Near one of the ship's flanks, he caught sight of a strange insignia, a stylized planet half-wreathed in laurel. Below it, in clean, blocky letters, were the words United Terran Federation. Terran? As in humans? Torv's vast eyes widened. Zark tapped his claws thoughtfully. "Impossible. Humans have been classified as a protected species by the Galactic Assembly for over a century. Their star systems are isolated, and they lack any advanced interstellar technology. This has to be some rogue faction. It's the only way." "Sir," Torv interjected hesitantly, "are we certain the humans lack interstellar capabilities? I mean, we've only ever seen limited data on them, mostly cultural records and pre-contact reports." "The Assembly forbids any interaction with them," Zarek growled softly, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "The Assembly's concern is misguided. Every report states they are primitive, a warlike species. Sure, but nowhere near our level of technology. They barely left their own atmosphere a few centuries ago." But despite Zark's confidence, he couldn't shake an uneasy feeling as he examined the ship on the screen. Those scars on its hull didn't look ornamental. They were authentic. And he knew battle-worn plating when he saw it. "Shall I attempt communication?" Torv asked. Zark nodded, and Torv set to work aligning the communication protocols to scan for any compatible channels. After a few tense moments, a crackling voice filled the bridge. Rough but clear and unmistakably human. "Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Rook of the Terran warship Resolute. State your intent or we will consider your approach hostile." The Saints flinched collectively. There was an unspoken understanding in the voice, a confidence that most species reserved for the experienced military commanders of major empires. "Captain Rook, this is Commander Zark of the Callan cruiser Vikal. We are here on a diplomatic mission. Our intent is non-hostile. However, your presence in this sector is unexpected." A pause followed, then Captain Rook's voice turned unhurried. "Unexpected to you, perhaps. As for us, we're well aware of Sealan routes in this region. You're the ones trespassing into restricted space." The bridge erupted in shocked whispers. Restricted space? The Kalans had scouted and mapped this sector for over a decade. It wasn't marked on any known charts as controlled territory. Torv whispered urgently to Zarek. "They're bluffing." "Commander," The assembly doesn't acknowledge human claims to any interstellar territory. They're confined to a few isolated systems. Zarek didn't look so sure. The bluntness in Captain Rook's tone wasn't the kind of posturing one expected from a bluffer. It was the kind of confidence that came from someone certain of their position. "Captain Rook," Zarek replied carefully, "there seems to be a misunderstanding. This sector remains under Char jurisdiction, according to the Galactic Assembly's accords. Your vessel's presence is irregular and unaccounted for in those accords. I must ask you to state your purpose here." "Purpose?" Rook's voice took on a dry edge. "Our purpose, Commander Zark, is to keep the peace. We're here to ensure no one interferes with Earth and its territories. If that means taking out any potential threats, so be it." Zark's claws twitched. The subtle threat in Rook's words was unmistakable, but there was something more disconcerting than just his tone. The suggestion that humans not only had expanded beyond their home system but that they had done so with sufficient confidence to claim territory and enforce borders. The silence stretched as Zarek considered his next move. He knew his orders: assess, report, and avoid confrontation at all costs. A skirmish with an unknown vessel, especially one bristling with more weaponry than he'd ever seen, was not on the agenda. "Captain Rook," Zar began, "I urge you to understand that we have no interest in hostility. Our species values diplomacy and peaceful contact. We are only here to observe." A low chuckle came through the channel, chilling in its blunt honesty. "Observe all you want. Just don't cross the line. You won't like the response." Zark's mandibles clicked together as he ended the transmission, signaling to Torv to sever the connection. His mind raced. Every Callan instinct, honed through decades of training, warned him of a dangerous predator. This human warship and its captain were far from the myths the Assembly had perpetuated. Torv broke the silence. "Sir, what are your orders?" Zarek paused, staring at the ominous silhouette of the Resolute. He could feel the weight of history bearing down on him. Captain Zark's mandibles clicked in thought as he reviewed the strategic situation. The Galactic Assembly's stance on humans had always seemed strangely adamant. Keep them isolated, treat them as primitives, and never interfere. But here was an undeniable contradiction: a heavily armed Terran warship with a captain who sounded anything but primitive. If the Assembly was aware of this, they had hidden it well. "Commander," Torv's voice broke his reverie, "what's our next course of action? We're in uncharted waters here, and the crew, they've never seen anything like this." He gestured toward the imposing image of the Resolute on the screen, its angular silhouette lingering like a threat. Zarek considered their options. They could report back to Kala and inform the Assembly, but the thought of retreating without any first-hand understanding of the humans' capabilities didn't sit well with him. Knowledge of this Terran Federation could be invaluable, especially if the Assembly was hiding critical information about humanity's technological advancements. "We're not leaving yet," Zarek replied, a determined edge in his tone. "Not until we know more. If the humans have broken isolation, the Assembly must be informed. And if this Terran Federation intends to push into shared space, we need to understand what they're bringing to the table." Torv's eyes widened. "Are you suggesting we test their capabilities, sir?" The suggestion bordered on recklessness, but there was a flicker of excitement behind his usual apprehension. "Nothing overt, Zir," said, his gaze locked on the Resolute. "We'll provoke a response, something controlled. If they're serious about enforcing terror, they'll react to even minor incursions. Plot a course that brings us within the outer edge of their supposed boundary." Torv's feathers bristled with nervous energy, but he nodded. "A calculated approach. I'll alert the crew to be ready for evasive maneuvers." As the Vakal adjusted course, Zarek felt his pulse quicken. For years, his missions had revolved around peaceful negotiations, maintaining the stability of Galactic Assembly-controlled sectors. Now he found himself leaning into the edge of unknown territory, testing the limits of a mysterious force from an equally mysterious species. The approach was slow, deliberately so, designed to test patience rather than provoke immediate hostility. But the Resolute held position, looming large on their screens as it watched their every move. After several tense minutes, an alert beeped. "They're moving, sir," Torv announced. "The Resolute is altering course. They're cutting us off. Hold position," Zarek ordered. "Let's see how far they'll push." The Terran ship closed the distance quickly, moving with a grace that belied its hulking appearance. The Sealans watched, Ched in awe and trepidation as the Resolute positioned itself directly in their path, its weapons systems lighting up the scanners with a terrifying clarity. Another transmission crackled through the comms. Commander Zark, Captain Rook's voice was calm but firm. You've crossed into restricted space. I suggest you back off before this goes any further. Captain Rook, Zarek replied evenly. We mean no harm. We are explorers. Nothing more. Surely you understand the importance of understanding one's neighbors. There was a pause before Rook responded, and when he did, his tone carried a hint of amusement. Understanding is one thing, Commander. Ignoring warnings is another. Last chance. Withdraw or face the consequences. Zarek hesitated. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for his decision. To stand down would be the safe choice, but it would also mean leaving unanswered questions and potential vulnerabilities. To push forward would be a gamble, a dangerous one, but perhaps necessary. Helm, Zarek said, his voice steady. Hold our course. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Vakal edged closer to the boundary. The Resolute responded immediately, its weapons systems powering up in a display of overwhelming force. Sir, they're locking onto us, Torv exclaimed. Steady, Zarek ordered. Let's see how far they're willing to go.